3 years ago, we received a diagnosis for Samson. He had a diagnosis of quite a severe life-debilitating disease. My life has changed quite significantly. After the diagnosis, we had 12 hospital stays in 14 months, the longest being 28 days in ICU, where he was very critical. I thought, it doesn't matter as long as he lives and comes out and goes home alive.
I think when you go through something difficult in your life, whatever that trauma, is, it's not something that ever leaves you. For a lot of people, they actually grow not in spite of, but because of. I've just come back from an incredible interview with Rihanna Adams, personal trainer of the year in Dubai, former national rugby team player and boxer, special needs mum, and soon-to-be author. Rhian shares her incredible story of overcoming adversity, of managing her time as a single mum and a special needs mum, which I know that so many parents here in the UAE and the UK and all of our followers and listeners around the world are going to find fascinating and inspiring. Make sure you tune into this episode. Your mind is going to be blown. So welcome, Rihanna Adams, to the Warrior Academy podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm very excited. It's such an honor to be here. I've learned so much about the Warrior Academy, and honestly, your journey is really inspiring.
Thank you.
Being a father of two, entrepreneur, philanthropist, best-selling author.
Oh, this is meant to be about you know what I mean? Cut.
But also sharing part of your personal story. You had a parachute collapse, right?
Yes, yeah. So, lots of little stories pop out now and again. Yeah, it's very true. If you could, for everyone in our audience, who some of them I'm sure will know you in Dubai, if anyone doesn't know you, could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Welsh. I'm from Wales in the UK. I've been in Dubai 9 years. I'm very passionate about fitness and health, have been since a very young age. I was awarded Advanced Exercise Specialist 2 years ago by REPS, Registered Exercise Professional. I tutor for Body Hack, was an award-winning fitness course provider. And I'm a mum of two. So I have a little girl, Serin, she's 5, a little boy, Samson, who's 3. And 3 years ago, we received a diagnosis for Samson, who was a very happy little boy. He had a diagnosis of quite a severe life-debilitating disease called Angelman syndrome. So that's characterized by not being able to stand or walk, being non-verbal his entire life, seizures, severe developmental delay. Basically, since that moment, my life has changed quite significantly. So since then, I've been trying to navigate my way the last 3 years. The last year, becoming a single mum, so navigating it alone and trying my best to live the best life for me and my kids, regardless of the circumstances. So, yeah.
There's so much in your story, which I just think is going to be so inspiring to so many of our members. There's where do I start? There's the special needs mum aspect. I know that I spoke to you earlier and I was talking about how martial arts really attracts so many children who do have additional needs. We've got a large portion of our students, I'd probably say 25+% are on the spectrum to some degree. Martial arts really, it encourages students who aren't necessarily picked for a team to be a part of something, right? It's like self-development, but it's part of a community. So your journey with that is fascinating and inspiring. And I've seen a lot of the videos of, how you've been working with the rehabilitation side of things with your son, which is just incredible. And if you're happy to, I'd love to dive into that and how that's affected your life and what you're doing. The Wonder Woman side of your life, which is, how your daughter wants to grow up to be a Wonder Woman, and, the seeing you as personal trainer of the year in Dubai, and, the book coming out. What's the book coming out going to be called?
Beautiful Bump to Bulletproof Body. So basically staying fit and healthy through pregnancy and postpartum, becoming a fit and strong mum afterwards.
Amazing. So, having kids is such a life-changing experience for a family, but particularly a woman, right? In terms of how your body completely changes after that moment. And so I think, every single mum watching this right now would have gone through that, and so they're going to find that absolutely fascinating as well. So I'd love to talk about that. And then just, I think the way in which you kind of approach everything in your life, right? You're very, very driven from what I've seen and what I've heard. You've been through a lot. And one of the things I love about interviewing guests on here is how open and transparent and authentic the guests have been and how happy they are to share their stories, even if they've been quite painful. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I think the best place to start is growing up in Wales. Where did you grow up in Wales exactly?
In Aberdeen, in the valleys.
In the valleys. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Which I have a hard time saying valleys since the valleys program came out.
I haven't seen it, but I've been there lots of times. Beautiful area.
Very nice when the weather's nice. Yeah, it rains a lot, but it's a beautiful place, and the people are the best. If you meet someone Welsh in Dubai, it's like your family, you know.
Yes.
Just some connection.
I've always found the Welsh to have amazing sense of humour as well. You know, maybe because I'm English, we just get on with the Welsh. I don't know. So, tell me about your life growing up. What was childhood like?
Childhood was fun. So I grew up with my brother and my sister. My brother's younger. My sister is older. Grew up in the valleys. We didn't watch TV. We were out playing with wheelbarrows and playing in the mud and climbing trees, you know.
Super active childhood, right?
Yeah, very active. So there was only going to be one path for me, which was going to be, fitness, which I remember after leaving school and wanting to go into the fitness industry, people had a view that it wasn't a real job, you know, which...
I had that as well. When I first started teaching martial arts, people would ask me, what else do you do? Because in the UK especially, teaching martial arts is very much a kind of side job, so I can completely relate to that.
Yeah, but best job in the world. Best job in the world. Lots of flexibility, it's a very happy job, very rewarding. So...
And just being active all the time. And that was one of the things I really wanted out of a career. I left university, I was studying in Denmark for the first year, studying architecture. I wanted adventure, and so I left university, travelled for a year, came back to the UK, and I didn't want to be stuck behind a desk all the time. I wanted just to use my body, and I was really into my training at the time. I was fighting professionally, so I wanted to continue doing that, right? So that's what really drove me. And it could be that similar to you, right? Growing up in a very active way, always using your body to then face a career as an architect behind a desk kind of frightened me a bit. So do you think that was linked to your childhood being so active to you wanting to then pursue that as a career?
I think related to my dad. My dad's a very outdoor guy. He's always up the mountains, 4 a.m. in the morning, he's up the mountains with dogs and, even now. So he stays fit and healthy. So it was definitely that influence there, yeah.
Okay, cool. And your mum?
My mum, she is not interested in health and fitness at all, but she's very happy. So what you do, what you say.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? How
healthy and happy, yeah.
How they often are opposites, right? Okay, cool. So you grew up in Wales, and then tell me about school life. Where did you go to school? What was the transition there when you moved into becoming a personal trainer?
So went to a primary school down the road. My high school, I went to a Christian high school. Very strict, high standard, lots of discipline. Taught good morals and values. And then I planned to go into the army, but I actually failed the medical test because I had a hip inflammation.
Okay.
So I was devastated because I thought I'm destined to go into the army, the highest on the aptitude test.
Really?
I was going to go in as an intelligence analyst and failed the medical. So I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? So I went to university, I studied sports science, coaching people alongside. So I was playing rugby for Wales at the time. And
sorry, you skipped past that. Playing rugby for Wales?
Playing rugby for Wales. Scrum half, yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's cool.
White collar boxing. So I had the first women's white collar boxing fight in Wales.
So you were boxing and playing rugby?
Yeah.
Wow.
Half, yeah.
Amazing. Cool.
I continued playing out here, but I've had 2 knee surgeries now.
Okay.
Ruptured my ACL. So yeah, did my sports science degree. I was coaching athletes alongside, and then I started my master chiropractic. And then 2 years in, when you realize you can't have another student loan, it's your second degree. I decided, okay, let's go to Dubai, save some money, and then go back and finish the degree. But came here, fell in love with the place.
Really? Yeah.
Saw all my friends graduate. And I was like, I don't really envy their life, kind of being in a room in a clinic all day. And I just thought, I'm not going to go back.
Right.
I'm going to stay.
Okay, so how old are you when you then moved to Dubai?
You're going to give away my age.
You don't have to tell me.
26. 27.
26 when you moved here, yeah. Okay, cool. So you've now been here quite some time. You've, set up your business here. Did you, in terms of when you started, was it always kind of pre and postnatal that you wanted to go down, or was that only when you had children?
I was qualified in pre and postnatal before having children, but it was when I got pregnant, I realized, wow, there is so much misinformation, contradictory information.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what's right and what's wrong.
Okay.
And then after giving birth, there's a big gap between giving birth and then having a go-ahead from the doctor and just going back to regular exercise.
Yeah.
Huge gap where no one is guided, no one has any advice.
So I think this is what we should talk about first. I think, I know it's tricky in an episode, a short interview like this, we kind of skip past, 20 years of your life and now, right, cool, let's get to this. But because a lot of that stuff, the child actually drives everything we do anyway. And so we could talk about that for a long time, I'm sure. But in terms of the pre and postnatal, one of the things that I've noticed, having a wife here as well, who, we've had 2 kids, one in Dubai and one in the UK, is that mix of advice, right? And it's often different because it's a real melting pot of cultures here. Every culture looks at it very differently. Some cultures are quite happy just to, as soon as they give birth, they're being active straight away, right? Other cultures are, you need to rest for 6 months, don't do anything at all, lie down, don't move. So it's a really big mix. That's something you've noticed as well?
Big mix, yeah. But the recommendations are that, even during pregnancy, you get the recommended amount of exercise 150 minutes per week.
Right.
And 75% of pregnant women don't actually get that. So, when
What do you think that is? Do you think that's because of the advice or because they don't feel like it?
I think it's because they're unsure what to do, so they don't do anything at all.
Yeah.
They feel like they're playing it safe, whereas there's a lot more harm being done just being sedentary,
Yeah. They haven't had the right advice at the right time.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you say about the different cultures and nationalities of the doctors here, the doctor's opinion could differ depending on who you go with. So my doctor didn't know I was a pre and postnatal trainer, but at 4 weeks, when I went in for the first scan, 4 weeks pregnant, she said, okay, just stop everything, just walk and swim. And I was like, no chance.
Yeah.
So, I changed my doctor to someone who approves of me exercising. And of course, I know better. I know that, resistance training is crucial, cardio training, just to get ready for the functional demands of motherhood.
Yeah. Suddenly you've got to carry extra weight, and it's, you almost want to prepare for that. And then, and then just at the time where you think you can relax, now you've got to have no sleep and you've got to do more work and be even more active. So
exactly.
The pregnancy's hard. Just wait for the childbirth and then...
biggest athletic event of your life. So you have to prepare for it.
Harder than an Ironman.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's when, mums get sprains and strains and hernias because their body has been out of action for 9 months.
Yeah.
9 months plus, right? Because when the baby's born, it goes to the bottom of your to-do list working out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And everything is pointing you to stop, right? You feel sick, there's nausea, there's up until that point, and then you've got the tiredness just sets in and,
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's such a challenging time because of that. I think if you've got the right advice and the right form in all the techniques you're using, you're less likely to overtrain. And so having that right accountability and paying for advice if you can is really, really key.
Definitely. And it gives you more energy.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good in your pregnancy.
Yeah. I think my wife, the first time, my daughter's 6 now, and Vicky and I found out she was pregnant while we were both teaching martial arts in the UK. And it was just us two, pretty much running the whole company. There was one other person called Matt, who's still area manager in the UK actually, at the time. But we were both pretty much teaching full time. And she was teaching martial arts right up until she gave birth.
Wow, that's amazing.
But the funny thing from a cultural perspective, in the UK, that was absolutely fine. Over here, when we had our second child, the comments are very different. Parents were a little bit, should he be really teaching? Shouldn't he be at home, sort of thing? So we noticed that a lot. But with training, I remember Vicky was 8.5 months pregnant, big tummy, training outside with kettlebells and all this sort of stuff, right up until the end.
Depends what you're used to. Like, she's used to martial arts.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Get someone in their second trimester start martial arts.
No, exactly. I mean, she didn't really do martial arts when she was heavily pregnant. Obviously zero contact, but more kind of just the being active, right? The moving your body, some very light resistance training. It's not all of it very light, but a lot of it light. And I think with, like I said, with the right form and stuff, the end result is she got fitter. She didn't slow down. She got fitter during her pregnancy. and she had more energy, and psychologically it was better for her mood and all sorts, right?
Yeah.
And then because of that training she did, she's already in a healthy routine. So when she did give birth, then it was a case of so much easier to bounce back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just a quick shout out to the guys at Shield who manage this podcast, come up with the strategy behind the podcast, help me schedule interviews, as well as do all of the editing and the producing of the podcast. Without them, we wouldn't be able to produce this podcast. If you would like to create your own podcast, I can't recommend the Shield team enough. They have done well over 100 episodes for me over the last few years, and I've been so pleased with the results. So have a look in the description of this video or the podcast episode, and you'll see how to get in touch with them yourself.
Yeah. So hopefully this book that I'm 6 years into writing.
So tell me about the book. Tell me what are the kind of the key pillars of the book?
Basically everything you need to know. So it's hard to go online, for instance, or get a program off a trainer on what to do during pregnancy, because every woman's journey is different and every pregnancy of the same woman is different. So it's taking that information in the book and making the judgment call on, okay, what's comfortable for me to do? Where do I start? Where do I build up? How do I adapt and modify along the way, knowing the information that's come from what I've learned in this book? So it's filling in the gap of all the knowledge that we should know as a woman, which maybe should be taught, in education, in schools and things. And research, there's not much research into it, the pelvic floor and diastasis, but there's a lot more research being done now. So the reason it's taken so long is because I've had to keep pulling it back.
To add in more research, more case studies, all this sort of stuff,
Yeah, which is great. So
yeah, definitely. And if there's more and more stuff to be added in, that's even better, I suppose, isn't it? So is it split sort of prenatal, postnatal, or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
but there's a lot of crossovers as well, yeah. Because where you start off postpartum is usually where you finish off in your third trimester.
Right.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Great. So just to kind of round off this conversation about the pregnancy and training, I love practical tips. I'm very much I think a lot of people listen to podcasts and episodes and they listen to it for entertainment, right?
Yeah.
But the most important thing I find is actually implementing what you listen to. If you really want to get something from an episode, write down 3 things that you're going to do differently at home that day or that week to help with your education. So if we looked at this prenatal first, what would be the top 3 tips for a mum who's going through prenatal from the kind of physical training point of view or diet?
Okay, so from a physical training point of view, I would say first of all, you can do walking, get moving. Get moving. Definitely. You're going to feel so much better in your pregnant body. It's going to be so beneficial to you and baby and to your postpartum body.
So lots of walking.
Yeah, walking and swimming you can do without instruction.
Yeah.
Prenatal classes is great because you can build a support network with other mums that are probably going to be due around the same time.
Sharing the experience.
Yeah, and you're in a safe environment. The teacher is qualified, certified, knows how to adapt and modify. And then to start strength training with a prenatal qualified trainer.
Cool. So. Get moving, strength training, prenatal group. Support network. Brilliant. Easy to remember advice.
Yeah.
Postnatal. 3 bits of advice for postnatal, the sort of challenges that women in general might be going through. Now, the advice might then be different if they've done prenatal work, right? So if they've not done anything, what would the advice be there?
Okay, I would say don't rush. Spend time getting into a routine with your baby. Sleeping, eating, sleeping yourself, taking time to shower, look after yourself, get into a routine, do lots of walking outside before you even start thinking about going back to exercise. Then start with some nourishing body weight exercises and some mobility, maybe some swimming as well for 2 or 3 weeks, and then move into maybe the gym space. Definitely no classes. Then move into the gym space and do some simple basic exercises, activating all the muscle groups again, getting everything working, activate the core, activate the glutes, muscles that tend to go a little bit lazy and inactive if they're not used. I would say ask for help. Get the hubby on board, get friends on board. It's very hard to leave the baby in the early stages, but taking care of yourself is going to decrease the chance of postpartum depression kicking in, which I had with my first child.
Really?
By the second child, you know what you need. You know you need to take that time to go and get your hair blow dried, or
Just spend a bit of time with yourself.
just take a shower and just eat some good food.
So those 3 bits of advice, if we were to summarize those, postnatal training, what would you be looking at?
So get moving.
Get moving.
Even if that's at home with baby, or go into baby and me classes, mums and tots classes. Getting hubby on board so that you can do some...
Get moving, get support.
Yeah. Get moving, get support.
Good food, good nutrition.
Good food and nutrition.
Yeah.
Even if that means getting a meal delivery service.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, you have not got time to cook as much as you want to.
I think that when you're tired as well, that's when you're tired, you're craving something.
Yeah.
And then it's easy to put on weight as well, because maybe you don't care as much about how you look because you're constantly at home anyway. I think that's a kind of slippery slope that a lot of people go down, right?
Yeah, it gets in a cycle. And especially if you're breastfeeding as well. You're sitting down a lot during the day, but also you just feel ravishingly hungry. So
postpartum depression, are you happy to talk about that a little bit and your experience of all that?
Yeah. So I think if the baby blues last more than 2 weeks, I think it's a good chance that it could be going into postpartum depression. So for me, I knew I needed to build a support network of other mums. And I also knew I needed to get moving more. So I set up baby and me classes. So I invited a lot of other mums, and they would bring their babies, and we'd have a little workout, but also we'd have a good chat over, what my baby isn't taking the bottle. Okay, try this bottle, and just
Sharing advice.
Small struggles that we were going through. So you don't feel alone, you feel supported. And connected to other people that are going through the same thing. Because in Dubai, it can get quite lonely. Your family's not around. Your mum may come over for 2 or 3 weeks, and then, you're left to do it alone. So, so postpartum depression, I think I had about 6 to... Thing is, for me, both my children weren't expected.
Okay, yeah.
So I was training to climb the summit of Everest.
Oh, right. So you're training to climb Everest and you get the news halfway up.
Just been to Nepal, climbed Kalapatar, abseiling over the mountains in Nepal. Then I went to Scotland for a whole week, ice axe climbing.
So, bit of a shock.
Came back, found out I was pregnant. So, that itself was a big challenge to me because, I'm not climbing this Everest anymore. I'm climbing the Everest of having children.
Yeah.
So I think that for me as well was a big challenge. But yeah, getting that support network around you, just having to think to yourself, what do I need? Because I think we all know what we need. Your life does change overnight, and a lot of the habits that you've taken like the last decade to build, they just kind of disappear.
Everything's got to change.
Yeah, like I used to have prayer time in the morning when I would wake up. I would have my multivitamins. Like, those things, they just disappear.
It changes. Yeah. So was the depression you felt after your first child?
Yeah.
That was your first child, yeah. I think it is. I think a lot of that postpartum depression comes from the shock of lifestyle change. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because it's most typical the first child, right? Because you've not had a chance to go through it before. You have no idea what's going to happen, all these expectations, and suddenly there you are. Yeah.
Well, your purpose changes, your identity changes, your social life, which comes with your work, is now gone.
Yeah.
Your
community, everything's unstable then. My wife and I, she was 8 months pregnant when COVID pretty much kicked off. So we had our son during lockdown.
Yeah.
Basically. And it can't have been far off for you.
Yeah, same. Samson was, they call them COVID babies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually. So what month was he born then?
He was born December
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
20...
It can't be 2019.
2019. He before this year.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it was, he was born, Max was born May 2020. And, I was acutely aware of Vicky is going to have no one around her, right? Just me. No one can visit, family can't visit. She's really far away from home. She's giving birth in a new country, and we're locked at home as it is. So, and at the same time, I had to try and make sure the business was doing okay. And I was setting up different businesses at the time as well. So it was a stressful environment, and me as the partner was just trying to de-stress and bring as much peace as I could into the home. But she didn't slip into a depression, so we were quite lucky there, because I think that for a lot of mums, I imagine that was the perfect breeding ground for postpartum depression, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Habi needs to come on board and realize, okay, she needs time to herself, feel herself again, and that's where training is good because you're going back to what you did before.
Yeah.
So you feel like yourself again.
Yeah.
And training makes you feel confident and empowered and
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you know what? One of the things that I think really helped her is training right up until that point, and then training as soon as she could afterwards, or moving as soon as she could afterwards. Obviously, pretty restricted. You can walk around the house, but that's about it during lockdown. But then there was, little things we were doing when she was able to, which just made such a difference. So I really believe in staying active as long as you can, and then starting as soon as you can.
Yeah.
If anything, to prevent that postpartum depression from kicking in, because it's so typical, I think, women to experience that. Okay, so let's talk about your second child.
Okay.
Tell me the story.
Samson.
Yeah, tell me the story of Samson.
Yeah, so Samson was born during COVID. So he was about 5 months old, and I noticed that he wasn't hitting some of his milestones. So he wasn't sitting up, he wasn't reaching out and grabbing things, he couldn't even lie on his tummy or crawl. And I noticed he had a slight squint. So it was from when we went to visit the pediatrician for the vaccines that she said, okay, something's not right, maybe you should go for a brain scan. So as you can imagine, hearing those words, something's not right, terrifying. So we went to a lot of pediatricians in the UAE, and then we went to a specialist pediatrician in Al Jalila, and he put us in for genetic testing. And I remember him saying, there is one severe disorder we're gonna put a separate test in for, and it's usually with children with very happy demeanors. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's Samson, because he's extremely happy. He doesn't cry. Imagine having a baby who doesn't cry. Yeah. It's not normal, right? I mean, it's great, but definitely a red flag. And it took 6 weeks for the test results to come back, and which was agony. And just
the waiting time.
From
being told something is most likely wrong.
Yeah.
To then find out what it actually is, so you can then, especially you strike me as someone who just wants to take action. Right? There's a problem, let's go solve it. Yeah. So that waiting time must have been really difficult.
Yeah, because by the time we had the diagnosis was 10 months. So my daughter was walking by that point.
Yeah.
So imagine he couldn't sit up or nothing still. And the pediatrician said, if we will call you, tell you the results, but if it's something severe, we'll ask you to come in. So he called on the Friday and said, can you come in on the Monday? And I was like, you got to be kidding. Like, it's something severe. And now I've got to wait the whole weekend. Yeah. So we went in and he said, the diagnosis is Angelman syndrome. So this is a genetic disease where it affects 1 in 20,000 children.
Right.
And it's where basically there's a gene in the brain responsible for speech, learning and movement. And that has been silenced on conception by chance, nothing.
Right, just complete chance, yeah.
He said basically it's like being struck by lightning. And yeah, basically he'll be nonverbal his entire life. He may not stand or walk, which we're working hard to change. He has severe intellectual disability, developmental delay. He's on 2 medications for seizures. Seizures are very common, and he has sleep disorder. So at the moment he's going to sleep with melatonin, and when he gets to 4 years old, potentially he would go on medication. And he also has inability to swallow. So he has a peg tube in his stomach to consume water 3 or 4 times a day.
Okay.
Also comes with suppressed immunity. So after the diagnosis, we had 12 hospital stays in 14 months.
Oh.
The longest being 28 days in ICU, where he was very critical, which was awful. And as devastating as that was, I think that was when I accepted the diagnosis fully.
Really? At that point?
It was, because I thought, you know what?
As
long as he lives, it doesn't matter, as long as he lives and comes out and goes home.
That kind of fear during those 28 days of losing him.
Yeah.
When it got really serious, and then all that really, what really matters the most comes to light.
Yeah.
And it's like, if he lives, you're happy.
Yeah, it's still Samson. He's still a very happy child. We can still have an incredible life. And we just need to go home. And then for the next 12 months afterwards, he would still need oxygen, not all the time, but any time like a small cold or virus would come around, he'd need oxygen to recover.
Right.
So it's been very challenging, been very tough, intense. plus with the sleep disorder, being up in the night.
So how often is he up during the night?
He goes to sleep with melatonin. He'll sleep 4 or 5 hours and then he'll wake up.
And up. So it's like having going through the whole newborn stage, but for such a long time, right?
Lifelong.
Lifelong. Yeah.
So the last thing you want to do is, put your child on medication. He's already on 2 seizure medications, which actually is helping with your sleep because it calms the central nervous system. Yeah. So the brain waves just don't slow down, which is why they don't.
Does he then sleep during the day or not? Does he catch up that?
He has a 20-minute nap.
Okay.
Yeah, around 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Which he needs, otherwise he'll just drop off.
So what a shock then to your routine, right? From being told the news to then having to deal with all of this while in lockdown, and because he was born in December, then you would have gone into lockdown, right? Yeah. So a lot of these hospital appointments would have been during COVID, during the lockdown.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with that. You're away from home, and you're now having to change everything in your life with no sleep, and going through everything you're going through. And what really struck me is how you so authentically and transparently shared your journey online. So for anyone watching, if you haven't seen Rhian's Instagram, it's filled with incredible videos of Rhian going through this with her son Samson, and it's amazing to see, right? Just how proactive you are, and you are really guiding him through it and being that role model for him through it, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the time in ICU, I have a strong faith and I believe in the power of prayer. And I remember just reaching out online, please pray for Samson. Like, he needs prayer. Like, it's going to go one way or the other. And that was amazing to see how powerful the online community, they'd be praying for him around the clock. They'd be fasting and praying, all around the world. And especially it was during Ramadan. So, the Muslim community were just, really lifting Samson up.
Wow.
That was amazing. But I feel like you need to share it to help people. Yeah. And his hospital stays now have really calmed down. We had 2 emergency trips during the last spring break. But, aside from that, inshallah is good. But I've had a few phone calls of people who are in hospital with their children, like where their child is critically ill and they do not know what to do, and they call me, or I have a message on Facebook and I wake up in the middle of the night and I call them because they're just so distraught and they're crumbling, like they're a mess, just like I was in hospital. And
you can relate to that straight away.
I can relate.
But they've seen the content you're putting out, the videos you're putting out, and so that's inspiring them. There's hope, right?
Yeah. Definitely, and I wouldn't be able to help them with that if I hadn't been through it myself. We went to America in November to a conference on Angelman syndrome, and there was one mum, she'd been in ICU with her son for so long, and I saw her and we just hugged each other, and it was just the most amazing feeling, thinking, I've helped her through the worst time in her life. Yeah. And I did that because of, what Samson has been through. You've got to look at the blessings like that, right?
100%, yeah.
Like for you, you've turned your mess into your message, right?
Yeah.
To help people.
Yeah, I think when you go through something difficult in your life, whatever that trauma, is, it's not something that ever leaves you, right? You kind of just grow around it. Yeah. You don't just go through something traumatic and then it's gone. You grow around it and becomes a part of you. And, for a lot of people, they go through something very, very difficult, very traumatic, and they actually grow not in spite of, but because of, right? So we work with a lot of young people who go through bullying, and then they do incredible things. I read a book called Not a Victim, and it's an anti-bullying book with a bit of a twist because it's all focusing around empowerment. And the kind of contrary opinion I've got of bullying is that it can actually be good for your child. And it's a really, really horrible thing to kind of consider as a parent, right? My child's going through bullying, and when I say it can be good for your child, not in the moment. It's horrible. It's terrifying for any parent. It's a worst nightmare. But we typically attract bullies into our life because of the insecurities or things we don't love about ourselves. And so then when we approach that with a very, very empowering way and we overcome it, we then live a life very differently. If you never overcome bullying, you kind of go down chronic bullying, and you have a smaller shell of who you could have been. If you do go through it and you're mentored through it properly, there's post-traumatic growth. And you grow into someone who's far more confident, who's, got more courage and actually is out there doing what they want to in the world. So I interviewed loads of people for this book. And there's so many case studies in the Not a Victim book from really successful athletes, business people, sports people all over the world who attest the bullying they went through, the trauma they went through when they were younger, to the success they have later in life. And as humans, we often think bad things mean, that's the end, when really bad things or difficult things that we go through can really mean the beginning of something incredible in our lives. I think for you, and you're only just kind of starting this journey really over the last few years of how many lives you're helping by sharing that story authentically. I know there are so many mums right now who are watching this who, are also special needs mums looking after their children. And for a mum or a dad who's got children who haven't got special needs, it's a completely different world. And the amount of time and effort and energy and, difficulty you have to put through every single day in order to, just to care full time, while also balancing a business, being PT of the year, writing a book, and hopefully one day climbing Everest again, right? It's the way in which you balance it, I think, is something that parents might find really inspiring, right? How do you approach that? How do you approach balancing all of that? Is it the support from husband and family or friends, or is it because, you said you're a single mum now, so, how is that affecting how you're managing to balance it all?
In a sporting context, imagine you're a rugby player, I'm the scrum half at the back of the ruck, and you have to look up and you have to think clearly. You have to look around, okay, what's the next best move? Do I pass out? Do I kick? Do I go to the left, go to the right? And you have to plan your next best move. And I remember having the diagnosis. Obviously, we spent months grieving, but then I had to try and get into that place where I had to think clearly. Samson needs occupational therapy, speech therapy, chiropractic care, physical therapy. He needs a nurse. Okay, how am I going to navigate this? Plus look after my daughter. Plus, achieve my dreams. I still have
look after yourself.
Look after myself. How to get that balance? 100% organization and planning.
Don't leave things to the last minute.
My house is filled with whiteboards.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. But it is very tough. And I remember thinking at the time, this is going to be a tough journey. There's no hiding away from that. How do I condition my mind and self-develop so that I become unshakable? Because I have no idea what the future is going to hold, but it's going to be full of challenges. So I'm still on that journey. A lot, there's been a lot of personal breakthroughs, but I'm still a long way off becoming unshakable and being able to take on, whatever comes my way.
Yeah.
And since becoming a single mum, I had that anxiety about I can't do this journey alone. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. But I've come to realize, no.
You can do it.
I can do it.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as a single mum, you feel limited. All of a sudden, you feel like there's all these limits. I can't do this. I'm on my own. I can't go there. I'm on my own. I can't go on staycation. It's just me. No, you can do anything, whatever you want to do. You can still earn good money. You can still parent your child, children the best you can.
You can still live out your dreams and do the things you want to do.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think that's inspiring to so many parents who have kids with special needs because of the extra work they have to go through, but also to single mums, right? I'm always blown away by how single mums balance stuff, because even with two of us at home, just two kids, it's difficult sometimes to balance everything, but as a single mum, that's really tough.
I have a nanny. She comes 7 till 2, and
that means you can get out and then you can start building the business.
Yeah, I can work. Yeah. I have a night nanny come twice a week, so I can have evening clients, but also I can go to bed, knowing that.
Do all this then with 4 hours sleep a night
but just imagine he's non-verbal, but he also cannot cry. So in the night when he's awake, I don't actually know he's awake because he cannot make a noise.
So then that leaves you paranoid all night. Waking up in the middle of the night, is he okay? Checking on him
all night.
Do you have a system to check on him then, or
instinct?
Instinct now.
Instinct. It's like he wakes me up. Yeah. Although one morning I did wake up and he'd somehow pulled his peg tube out of his stomach. Imagine he had surgery to fit this in.
Yeah.
Pulled it out of his stomach. He was covered in blood and I had absolutely no idea. To rush him to the hospital and they had to insert it back in. And then imagine after that I had insomnia, even worse.
Oh, I bet you just couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I have a night nanny. She comes twice a week and I can just, honestly, the times I've hit the pillow and just cried in relief, like I can just stay here for 8 hours and not get up.
I think there's a really important message here on inclusion as well. I feel like in the Middle East in particular, a lot of parents don't want to talk about the fact they've got children with special needs. Yeah. And I don't know why that is, but I know that it's more of an open subject in the UK where I'm from. What advice would you give to a parent who maybe comes from a very different culture to us, and their culture kind of suppresses that information and tells them not to necessarily speak about it? What would your advice be there?
In what respect? I mean,
if you're a mum with a special needs child, and the issue is, I think Dubai wants to be more inclusive, right? There's been a big push, people's determination, all this sort of stuff, but still, for a lot of families, culturally, they don't want to talk about it. There's a big part of what you talk about is finding that support network, and I can just envision a lot of mums dealing with it on their own, rather than finding that. So how would you advise approaching that?
Okay. Well, I'd say the best support has been the online community. So depending on the special need of your child, communicate with the online community, because there's no one that can understand what you're going through better. Yeah. So the Angelman syndrome community is incredible.
And whatever it is your child's got or is going through, there'll be something out there. There's Facebook groups for absolutely everything. Yeah. If you just look online, I totally agree. If you can't find that community around you locally, online, you can then have that support. Yeah. And the great thing about that is how good communication is, right? You've got that support network in your pocket whenever you need it.
Exactly. Get your child involved. So, we've been through a couple of rejections with Samson in terms of schooling, even got rejected from a special needs school. And another special needs school, they would actually require the nanny to go in.
The whole time.
Even though what Dubai is trying to be inclusive, sometimes that's very difficult. But like you say, with the martial arts, they are inclusive. There's Heroes of Hope. So imagine when we had the diagnosis for Samson, me and my ex-husband were, we fitness fanatics, we're athletes, we're rugby players. And we vision our son to also be an athlete. And to have that diagnosis and realize they may not even going to be able to stand or walk, that's, really disheartening. And then finding, there's a company called Heroes of Hope, where they take in special needs children and they play basketball with them. They take them in the gym space, getting on the cables.
Is this just Dubai based, or are they?
I think it's just Dubai based, but you'll be surprised if you look into it, what's out there for your child, depending on what the interests are. Yeah. And someone once said to me, I think I heard it on a podcast actually, if you have a special needs child, make sure you have the best garden in the neighborhood.
Best garden, yeah.
Yeah, because they don't have friends as such, but our garden, we got trampoline, we got the monkey balls, bean bags, so all the children are always in our garden, and Samson's interacting, and it's so lovely to see, because otherwise he's with a nanny all day, or a therapist, or me. Of course, he's got his sister Sarah, but being around the children makes me so happy to see. And it's also good for the other children. Yeah. It's good for them to see and
definitely
witness it.
That's all part of inclusion, isn't it? Making children feel a part and understand what's going on and what the real world's like,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. I feel like we've covered so much I know it's only been about 45 minutes, but I feel like we've covered so much. Your story growing up, why you got into what you're doing in the first place, and how probably your father inspired you a lot of the time, your focus and your inspiration around, post and prenatal, sharing your story authentically about, postnatal depression, and then being a special needs mum. I think there's just so much that parents at home are going to get from this. So where's the best place for everyone to find out about you? We can put it in all the links below.
Probably Instagram. However, I'm having a 1 month off, but you can still find me on there. Rhian_Adams_athlete. And that's the best place.
Cool. Instagram it is. Yeah. So we'll, a lot of these videos we got all over Instagram anyway. So hopefully everyone will see and really benefit from this amazing chat. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed today's Warrior Academy podcast episode. We're going to keep creating these episodes because I know that so many parents find them useful, or get insights or get ideas about how to develop their child's character. But it all comes down to the 3 C's: confidence, conduct, and concentration. So if you want to get a deep insight into the levels of confidence your child has, the level of concentration they have, or the level of conduct they have, so that you can actually put a score next to it, and then work towards increasing those scores like we do in the Warrior Academy, then I'd love to invite you to fill in the Breakthrough Area Assessment. It takes about 5 minutes of your time, and you will get a personalized PDF report on your child's 3 Cs. To access the Breakthrough Area Assessment and find out your child's 3 Cs score, all you need to do is go to www.breakthrougharea.com.